Hey everyone, this is episode 2 of the Brainrack podcast. I'm Jordy.
And I'm Troy.
Today we talked about having discipline versus the 80-20 principle and when to use both, when to use one, when to use the other, the pros and cons of each.
We get a little ranty.
Very ranty.
I wouldn't say very ranty, but
Okay.
there was definitely some ranting. We discuss the pros, the cons. We also talk about what we have been up to because I am in a different world than Jordy, but turns out we're finding more and more similarities.
I talked about writing music and how the 80-20 principle helps me versus having discipline, the pros and cons.
And at the end, there's a great part, and I'm a little biased because I said it, but if you're suffering from burnout, I would say tune into the end about
the last 15
last
20
15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good
talk
stuff
about
there,
burnout.
but thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Welcome back, everyone, for episode 2 of the Brainrack podcast. It is I, Troy, and
me, Jordy.
today we're here to talk about what we've been doing in the past couple weeks, and then we have another mind-bending topic to beer storm, except we're throwing a wrench in it today, and we're using scotch, but that works just as well, if not more effectively than beer.
Exactly. So if you're listening, thanks for being here. We're glad you're listening, and we are going to talk about. Want me to introduce it?
Yeah, maybe just to start off, what have you been doing? I know, last time we did the whole recap because people weren't up to speed. But if someone listened to the past, they heard you were trying to do one song a month. But you texted me some stuff about.
Oh yeah, still gonna be
about every 2 weeks or something crazy. So what?
You're revealing the secrets. So one song a month is still gonna be the thing that happens. I am working on how to make that happen. So my cycle of making them is gonna be shorter than 1 month.
So if you have to split, so you have making a song is your whole task. But if you have to split it into like the 5 component parts, what goes into making a song? I mean, because I can kind of think in my brain, you just like bang on the keyboard and sing, but I don't really know anything about music.
I'll just go ahead and recap what I've been doing. To answer that question, banging on the keyboard and singing is a pretty solid step one, and I'm actually going to give it more validity than you were actually intending. Banging on the keyboard and singing is a really, really important first step because I've noticed that I can't plan out songs very effectively. Like you have to have an idea of what you want to talk about or sing about or write about. And then you have to bang on the keyboard and make noises first. Like don't think you have to come up with the perfect melody now. A lot of it for me has been start playing. I don't know.
So you're saying it's not something where you lock yourself in a room and write out musical notes. It's closer to lock yourself in a room and just start playing, and maybe you create 10 prototype in your brain songs, and they're all bad, but you take a couple good parts and then it turns into a song. Yeah.
So to talk about, we're going to talk about the process here.
Dude, let's go deep.
Let's go deep. Wow, we started this podcast really quickly. It was like,
what's your greatest fear now?
Boom. Like, hello, everybody. Welcome. What is the meaning of life?
What's your saddest moment in your life?
Spill your heart out. Okay, so I have noticed that the first thing you do is need to ramble. And actually, this is going to be this is kind of one of the epiphanies I had this week. You need to start by just effectively mumbling. So if you don't know what to write, like if I was going to write a book, start off saying, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. Maybe I should write about this. What about this? I should talk about this. So sometimes when I do that, and then you start it, like the paragraph and the thing starts to take shape as you blurt out randomness.
Can I make an analogy?
Yep.
Because So I'm a member of Toastmasters, which is basically where you go and you practice speaking. So the worst part of most people's school, I do that for fun 2 days a week at 7 a.m. but I have to practice speeches, and then I have to give speeches at Toastmasters, and I found that the way for me to give a really good speech and to learn, the kind of learn through the universe what is actually good and what's bad is just as I'm driving my car to just talk through it, which feels really, really uncomfortable. I keep kind of coming out of my body and being like, do I have schizophrenia?
I look weird right now. Yeah.
But then I'm like, you know what? I don't judge myself. Whatever is the best way.
It's becoming my tool for fighting quote unquote writer's block. A lot of people say they have writer's block, and I don't know that I've actually experienced like some kind of dramatic writer's block or anything like that. I don't think I've earned that yet. But
yeah, I heard a quote that you don't have plumber's block. You don't have cop block.
Or talker's block. Like anybody can talk. Yeah, exactly. And you don't, if you dig ditches for a living, before you go to work, you don't like contemplate how, like digging. You don't like justify the digging or have to get, you grab a shovel at 8 a.m. when it's time to work or whatever, and then you dig. You start digging.
I get cold call block.
Yep.
For sure. And I know I even have a little quote thing I have on my wall where I look up, and it obviously says like discipline equals freedom and moderation's for cowards. And
Jocko Willink.
Yeah, just a picture of Jocko with the hearts on it. But one of the quotes I have on there is that it takes 10 to 15 calls to feel like you're even okay to make calls. Because there have been times where I sit down and it's like, I have legitimately done everything else. Like, I'm so organized in my email. I have tended to everything for my desk is clean.
Yeah.
I have no more excuses, and there's nothing I'd rather do than not make calls. But just got to get after it. But so that's interesting. So
it's scary too, and you have to get over the fear of sucking out loud. And I'm not saying you as in you or like
as
people
in
listening to this.
One must get over the fear.
Or just me. I have to get over the fear of putting things down that are bad, because you want to make something good. If you're writing music, you want to make something good. Yeah. And that's what I've been dealing with this week. And actually, I think I've been doing pretty decently now. I've learned a trick, which is what I just talked about. Start mumbling words, or I just press record on the computer and I just let it long play. Like I just run it and I come up with as many ideas, as possible. And that like gets me out of my over analytical brain.
Because even if you're just meandering in the same little cul-de-sac of mediocre ideas, all of a sudden you might go down a path that you never would have gotten there if you weren't in that shitty cul-de-sac to begin with.
Yep. And you want to have good ideas. I want to have good ideas, but I noticed that I can't on demand have good ideas.
Dude,
absolutely.
Another thing is maybe good ideas don't even exist until they go to the marketplace.
Probably.
Like you think that you've got a really good idea, and you might have a really good idea, but I gave a humorous speech at Toastmasters because I was in a humorous speech contest.
Solid.
I told the story of when I got chemical burns on my genitals, and I toned it down to like PG, but this story for sure should have been rated R. And so, it was like I toned it down and I copped out, and I still thought it was really funny. And there was one guy who was just cracking up, and everyone else was looking at me stone-faced. And I'm just up there
Your story was for that guy.
Yeah.
He was your fan.
But if you'd asked me to bet $100 if I was going to make people crack up, I would have said for sure. But I didn't realize that my target audience was not my frat guy friends. It was professional people in Toastmasters. And even though it was a humorous speech contest,
except for that one dude.
I thought I turned it down. Yeah, but that one guy, he still brings it up. When he introduces me, he's like, oh, and Mr. Chemical Burns. And it's been so long ago that most people don't even know what the context is. But
he's still going.
Yeah, but that's interesting because, you don't really know.
So the past 2 weeks actually has been the past week or so has been my cycle for making this next song that I'm writing. And I've been leaning heavy on the idea generation as opposed to the editing. You have to just like get a pile of ideas just in
volume.
In volume. And here's an analogy, like a little epiphany that I kind of had this week.
Dude, go.
So,
this is what we're here for. This is the whole
right.
reason that we're recording this, because we used to do this at B-dubs and just yell at each other, and the
Yep.
waitresses would like kind of tiptoe up and not sure if they should interrupt.
Because we were very intense.
And we were like, Seth Godin!
And Jocko Willing. Anyway, if you're listening to this, I think this might be interesting, maybe, but I'm just mainly just going to like rant to Troy right now. So,
I'm ready.
we used to like talk for, I don't even know, like 4 hours straight.
Maybe we're secretly gay. Never mind. Go on.
What?
I was jumping in. Go ahead.
We just would talk.
We're just friends, okay?
We would talk for 4 hours straight, at least, about exercise and lifting and working out consistently.
Yep.
We
First
would.
time we ever met each other, I was like 13 and Jordy was like 11.
Yep.
And we were on a bus to black belt camp because we were black belts, obviously. And it was a 4 or 5 hour bus ride. And we just started talking about lifting weights. And I had just started lifting maybe 6 months before. And Jordy, maybe we were 14 and 12 or something like that. And Jordy had maybe
think it was like
just started.
it was 11 or 13.
Just started lifting for a week or something like that.
Yep.
And it was just like, I know nothing, but I read a lot of magazines, and I am going to get jacked as a mother. Beep, beep, excuse me.
Beep, beep.
And just jacked as heck. And then we just yelled at each other. So there's been some history.
There's been some history. So one of the things we talked about was that dichotomy, that dynamic of people talk about bulking and cutting, right? Yeah. So people get real fluffy and real big and just stuff their face with food and work out hard and lean towards heavier weights and maybe lower reps-ish. Not super low, like powerlifting, but lower than like burnout craziness.
Yeah, or they just get super fat.
But the point is they build up this muscle and then they like if they're going to compete like in a bodybuilding competition.
Oh, I get where the analogy's going.
They will cut away. But imagine if they didn't do that bulk.
Imagine if they tried to just have aesthetic abs all the time and they never got into a caloric surplus. They never would gain those muscles. So if you're trying to have perfect aesthetic, beautiful songs, every single song, you'll
muscle.
never get to the point where you can cut it down to shredded and 3 or 4 pounds more muscular than the last time you were shredded.
Exactly. So to finish out my analogy, if they say there's a bodybuilder, what they could do a couple options. If they only cut, they'd end up being, I don't know, 115 and lean, just lean as hell, right? Yeah. Just super lean. And if they only bulked, they'd just be this giant dude, have a lot of muscle, but be pretty fat.
I did that.
What's the best combination of that? When they bulked and they're lean. So they're big and they're lean.
And they didn't bulk too hard because I learned that the hard way.
Well, didn't bulk too hard without also cutting that hard.
Okay.
Right? So
I agree it fits better in the analogy not to bulk too hard. So yes, go on.
Yeah. So that I figured out that is the same with the song. You want a beefy and lean song. So
it's the same idea as cold calling. I mean, you don't make 20 calls and try to make those perfect. You make 1,000 calls and then cut it down, and then there's like 50 people that have interest, or like 2.
I'm gonna adjust your analogy.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that you had an idea of how you should cold call, and you kind of guessed.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just had a cold call 500 times and try different ways of doing it, and then along the way you edited down, kind of, and refined how you did it. So that just bulk amassing ideas and methods of cold calling was the bulk, and then using your left brain, cutting it down, editing, getting out what you don't need, just not doing unnecessary stuff. That's the cutting. And you end up with a really effective.
And so that's what you've been trying to do with coming up with a song.
Yeah, and I realized like literally yesterday that this is a good analogy. You have to bulk first. Like you don't cut first, you bulk first.
Nice.
So,
dude, Arnold would be so proud.
Right? And I'm trying to apply that to music and writing songs. You got to bulk first. So make a really fluffy, over the top, way more ideas than you need. A lot of bad ideas. That stupid idea that you probably know is not going to work, record it.
as we were trying to come up with names for this podcast, we are so special, whatever you want to call it, that we're like we need 30 bad ideas. And let me tell you, one of the bad ideas, it still makes me laugh. So we were trying to think of brainstorm, and I was like, let me do synonyms. Well, synonym of brain is mind. Synonym of storm is tempest. What if we called it mind tempest?
The mind tempest.
And Jordy just looked at me like it was legitimately the worst idea, because it was.
But I wrote it down.
You wrote it down.
I wrote it down. You know,
we got to bulk before we can cut.
You gotta write it down, because sometimes you have those ideas that sound bad, and then you wake up in the morning and you're like, actually, you know that dumb idea? It's kind of good.
Or like, tempest is a nice word. Let me use it in something else.
Mind Tempest Podcast. So anyway, this week has been, you could equate it to the bulk week of the songwriting. I'm just having as many ideas as possible, putting it down. And then next week, I'm going to transition and just start leaning towards, have a bias towards getting rid of ideas versus adding new ones and refining them. That's my analogy, and that's what I've been working on. So I've just been writing. I've been trying to have more ideas than I cut.
Do you have a written business plan?
I do not have a written business plan.
And I only say that because my team told me that I needed to have a business plan. Not that I would have obviously made a business plan as well, but just because I'm psycho. But he sent
me an email one time.
Yeah.
Like a Google Doc about his like entire business / life plan.
Yeah, it's getting a little personal, but you're right.
It was very organized.
True. Because man, if you don't write something down, you don't know. But I personally, I'm a big fan of not trying to remember things that you don't have to remember. Mm-hmm. I like to keep, I like to have Google be my memory in as many ways as possible, or Google Drive or something, so that I can, and it's going to get into our topic, so that I can focus on the 20%, so I can focus on the most important parts. So I personally, if I was you, I would write down a business plan, even write a crappy one, but then say, write your process for creating songs, because right now you kind of have an idea of it, but if you figure out your exact process, then when you have another epiphany, you just adjust it. But then you don't have to keep that process in your head. You can just look at your business plan.
This is a really, really good segue into the topic that we want to talk about. So the first thought that I had about that was, one...
We didn't really introduce the topic.
This is going to be the segue.
Okay, go ahead.
So my first thoughts to that is, one, that could be really useful, so that way I don't have to think about it. It's written down, and all I need to do, even if I don't feel like it that day, is just follow the plan. Have the discipline to go through the steps.
Yeah.
Right? At the same time, on the flip side of it, I've noticed that you can't always plan how you're going to write that song or write that thing. It comes from wildly different, unpredictable angles that you can't plan. So it might, if you stuck to that plan overtly, or if it was too detailed, it could throw you off. It could totally throw you off, and it could actually hinder you doing that.
This transition is legitimately artwork.
This is amazing.
This was very good transition.
So today's topic is, drumroll, and what is the topic? When do you use discipline in your life, in your day-to-day life? When is it good to use discipline, and when is it good to be flexible and say something's good enough?
To use the 80-20 principle. So the original thought is there are two ideas that seem to both be right. And one is obviously from the great Jocko podcast.
All hail.
All hail, Jocko. Unmitigated daily discipline in all things. And that came from an episode which was talking about leading men in combat, or something way harder than any of our lives. And he gave a few different examples, actually used a lot of different sources. But one thing that really stuck with me is it was with the Russians versus the Chechens in a war. And the quote that stuck with me was that the Russians lost as soon as they stopped shaving. Meaning, as soon as they lost that discipline to shave, because, it's uncomfortable, I'm in war, I don't really need to shave, it doesn't matter what I look like.
What's the point? Yeah.
Then the next thing was, oh, well, I kind of looked through that window, but I don't really need to check. I'm sure it's fine.
I cleaned
And
my
then,
gun last week.
yeah. And it's kind of like in a relationship,
Oh, snap.
if you break trust once, it's a lot easier to break trust again and again. And so this author said that the key that he found to be able to lead people in combat was to make sure that all of his men and himself had unmitigated daily discipline in all things. But that kind of contrasts with the 80-20 principle. What's that?
80-20 principle. That's a lot of things. What 80%, 80% of the benefit.
20. So what it is there's. Don't worry, man.
I can't explain it. It can be used in so many ways.
Or it's the scotch, but I'll save you, friend. So what the 80-20 principle is?
I had like 4 sips.
Yeah, I know, but you're Asian, dude.
Oh yeah.
There's so if you have something that has a bunch of inputs. So let's say I'm thinking about, just because it's near and dear to my heart. It's if I'm thinking about business development, there's a lot of different ways I can go and I can try to find clients. Mm-hmm. But historically, if you run the numbers in every different field, there's going to be a small number of inputs that has a disproportionate effect on the overall output.
So 20% of your clients.
So 20. So
maybe profit.
Maybe cold calling is the 20% that gives me 80% of the benefit, or networking, and it doesn't make sense for me to focus on a lot of the other stuff. Or like, let's just say with nutrition, what's the 20% that gives you 80% of the benefit? Calories. If you have too many calories, even if they're clean, like I got fat as hell with oats and chicken and rice because I was determined. And so the question is,
how do you balance?
I mean, because do you have the 80-20 principle, or are you unmitigated and disciplined in all things?
Because 80-20 is awesome because it can help you speed up. And like when you're doing stuff, don't do unnecessary stuff.
Yeah.
Just cut it out. Just do what is important, the most important thing that gets you most of the benefit, and that's a pretty good system.
So we've kind of introduced those two thoughts, and now sticking with the theme, the structure that we had before, I'm going to talk just a little bit. It's going to be, I'm going to present my ideas a little bit than Jordy is. Exactly. I make people follow me around and make that noise. That wasn't even Jordy.
No, that was not me.
And so I have what are the pros, the good things of unmitigated daily discipline in all things? Well, one is, that you're giving it your all. I mean, you can't understate the mental benefit of just getting after it. If your house is perfectly clean, if your diet is perfect, if you're super fit, if you do everything right at your job, you
make your bed in the morning.
Yeah, make your bed in the morning. You just, the mental benefit is there.
Over. And you start to put your ego and like place your self-worth in the fact that you do things really well.
I'm the type of person that does this.
Yeah.
Another thing that's good about unmitigated daily discipline in all things is it's sometimes hard to know what the 20% is. If you try to do some 4-hour workweek crap and be super, and I say crap very loosely because that's a great book, and try to be super efficient and do a small amount of work, it could be that you're just being lazy and you're trying to focus on the wrong things. If you do an analysis, let's say you're having bad luck with the ladies, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do some 80-20 analysis with the ladies. Well, what are the 20% that gives me 80% of the benefit? Well, it's probably something like talking to a lot of girls. That might be the real answer. But let's say you are incorrect and you think it's knowing a lot about dogs.
Because
girls like puppies.
Girls like puppies. Puppies are dogs. Therefore,
and so sometimes it's hard to know what the 20% is. So if you spend all your time learning about puppies in the library, you're not going to really do better with the ladies. And then another thing is Arnold and Jocko both say to be crazy disciplined, so you can't discount that. And I mean, just me looking at it, discipline is rarely a negative.
I'm gonna go another way too. Discipline makes up for human error.
Mm-hmm.
So we have both read the book, The Checklist Manifesto.
Oh, yep. Good book.
So
We'll link to it.
we will
allegedly.
link to it. Yeah, sorry we didn't link to anything before
sorry.
on the first episode. We'll do that this time. The Checklist Manifesto, it talks about, for example, hospitals having a system before you go into the operating room to have a checklist, because in the heat of the moment they can get undisciplined and forget something, and then boom, someone dies because of that.
So have the discipline to do the checklist every single time.
That's right.
Gives you the freedom
This is
of
what
not
we
having
do.
line infections.
So, and it's not that they feel like doing this today. It's not that they have to try to remember. It's look at the checklist and move your body through all
force
of
your
these
corpse to do it.
through these things.
I mean,
yeah.
and when they went and talked to the doctors, these doctors were offended. They're like, "What? You don't think I know how to clean patients? You don't think I know how to put an IV
You
in?"
think I'm not gonna remember to clean the wound or
Yeah.
to get my instruments out of people? But guess what? People leave.
And
people
guess
leave
what?
instruments
When they
in
did the
people.
checklist, it was line infections.
Yeah, line
I don't
infections.
even know what that means, but it's something bad.
The line that would go into
Yeah,
the patient would
maybe.
get infected.
I don't know.
The
Those are-
UV or the IV would get infected. The line.
well, I mean, I know an IV and a line look kind of the same, but I don't know if that's what it meant. But anyways, it went to zero.
Something like
It went to zero. So like discipline is good. But then what about the negatives of discipline? Mental fatigue. It's super hard to be disciplined all the time. Like I just was disciplined and unloaded my dishwasher. Did I want to do that? No. I would have paid to buy new dishes if someone unloaded it for me.
We just talked about people dying in a hospital, and you're like, for example, unloading the dishwasher.
Because that sucks. Cleaning is horrible. I hate it. Another thing against unmitigated daily discipline is motivation. I mean, yes, you should have a lot of discipline, and I try my hardest to have a lot of discipline, but sometimes you're just not motivated. And, you know, if there was a more effective way, if you knew the 20% that's going to give you most of the benefit, maybe you could just do that. And then there's also not an unlimited amount of time in the day. So we can have unmitigated daily discipline in all things, but we're never really going to have unmitigated daily discipline in all things, because if I wanted to learn Spanish and learn how to computer code and kill it at my job and get jacked and get lean and shoot my bow so well that I kill 3 deer this season, there's not going to be time. So those were the pros and cons a little bit of unmitigated daily discipline in all things. You got something, Jordy?
Yeah, I got something. So another con. I think that unmitigated daily discipline is kind of like laws of physics. They work in a vacuum. So they work really well in a perfect world, but they don't assume in some ways I feel like they don't assume random variables that happen to you.
So
in
like
a day.
you say, I am going to make 50 calls come hell or high water. And then a huge prospect calls and says, I'd like to meet right now for 6 hours. And you have unmitigated daily discipline.
So you
You're
just
like,
make the call.
I'm sorry, I'm going to make the 50 calls. Oh, that's so
It's
stupid.
like, dummy, that's why you're trying to make the calls.
Yeah.
So you can go.
That's a good example.
Get prospects, right? So that's where it can lead you astray.
Nice. Well, I think that those are great reasons for it, but also some valid reasons against being
There's a
unmitigated
dichotomy.
daily discipline. Oh, God. How Draco.
How'd you-
Anyways, the next thing that we feel, which it probably isn't, after we brainstorm this, we're going to hopefully find a solution, because I was doing some prep and I couldn't really find an answer. So I'm hoping we can all learn together. The next is the 80-20 principle, which that's a little bit of gospel to me. So what can you think of some things in favor of that?
In favor of the 80-20, yes. A lot of people need to have feel like they need to have the perfect plan before they start. And when I say a lot of people, I mainly mean myself.
Nice.
So you need to have I need to have the perfect plan before I start. I got to make sure everything's good because I'm trying to be disciplined. So
Sorry.
trying to
That's took too big of a gulp.
Okay.
Gosh.
trying to be really disciplined. So I'm trying to prepare well and do
Yep.
good and make sure I account for all the factors.
Yeah, and you could spend all day preparing.
I could spend all year preparing.
Nice.
And honestly, that's probably my biggest weakness, that I want to over prepare. I want to shout out to last episode, paralysis by analysis.
Oh, that was a good one.
Boom, check it out. It can 80-20 principle. Keeping that in mind helps me not be afraid to start, to say, what's the 80% of things that are important for this? Write those things down in 10 minutes.
The 20%. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Flip what I said.
Yeah.
What are the 20% of things that's going to give me 80% of the benefit? Write those things down in 10 minutes on a piece of paper and start the thing. Start the thing. If you're going to do a workout plan, Troy and I could spend a solid 12 hours straight talking about the perfect workout plan. We really honestly could. That's not even a joke. Or you could say, I know I probably need to run and I probably need to lift something.
Yeah.
So start there.
Especially if you're not a really well-trained athlete. Once you get more advanced, you got to do a little bit of periodization craziness.
But doing some push-ups.
But if you've never lifted before, dude, go find 4 exercises and do them.
3
times a week, as hard as you can. No plan, and you'll make gains.
I don't know. It's like, what do I do for reps? I don't know. 10.
Till you vomit, whatever.
Or till you vomit. Pick one. And so, okay, you know what? I'm going to go with that. 80-20 principle. You start and you say, I'm going to go till I vomit. Okay. You do push-ups till you vomit or run till you vomit. The next time you say, that was a really good workout, but I couldn't work out or move for the rest of the week. Maybe I should do not quite to that just before I vomit so I can do more workouts in the week.
You figure out that more workouts in the week with better quality is the 20% that gives you 80% of the benefit.
But you didn't need to know that to start working out. You just started and you learned it along the way. So I think the 80-20 principle helps me not be afraid to start something. The 80-20 principle helps me not BS myself a lot. Like, just to say, oh, I need to have this perfect plan. Is this important?
No, this is not important. I'm just hiding.
That's right. Is the perfect... Did you know that you can spend money on nicer and nicer microphone cables?
Whoa.
Like, you can get cheap cables, medium, kind of expensive, really expensive cables, all the way to just like gold-plated, really, really nice audio cables. I could feasibly think that, oh yeah, I can't start songwriting and recording until I get nicer cables.
Yeah, it's going to help me feel more in the mood.
Well, it's going to make me feel more in the mood. And also, I mean, sound quality is an important part. Logically, that makes sense. I need to wait so I can save my money, so I can go get more cables so that I can record music, when that does not matter at all. So.
And another thing in favor of the 80-20 principle is it's honestly true most of the time. I mean, think of salespeople. 20% of salespeople.
What is that? What's the 80-20 of selling?
There's a lot of different 80-20s of selling, but if you're an organization and you've got 100 salespeople, there's actually a study that like 30% of the salespeople generated like 90% of the revenue, or it's basically like the cream floats to the top.
Yeah, it's almost like a bell curve too. Like,
Yeah, I'm just gonna agree, but yeah, maybe. But there's seriously, if you look at, I mean, if you look at everything, like let's say for me in my current pursuit of trying to be a financial advisor, stockbroker type fellow, that the 20% that gives me 80% of the benefit is talking to a bunch of people. So, I could do the perfect method, I could do a lot of different stuff, but just getting in front of people, if that's the 20%, that gives me 80% of the benefit, it doesn't make sense to try to sit back and plan out the perfect method. No, I just need to get out there and just talk to people. And maybe that's not the 20%. And we'll say, because we got some feedback, and we're great at taking feedback, because sometimes we get a little long-winded. So we'll say one more pro of the 80-20 principle.
Karina gave the feedback. This is
you, Karina.
Karina.
In other words, it's super efficient and allows you to be kind of lazy and still productive. Dude, I 80-20'd my way through college.
Dude, me too.
I was just like, okay, what's the 20% that gives me 80% of the benefit? Like, oh, you're not checking my homework. I'm not doing my homework. But then it's like, oh, the exam. Nice. And I studied for like 7 days. And then not like I studied for 7 days. Like, no, I studied for 7 days. But then I got A's.
Boom.
Another thing is 80-20 dog crap cleaning. if you know you've got friends coming over and the dogs crap everywhere, just kind of figure out like what's 20% of the yard that the people are going to walk in and just clean the crap up there. 80-20 romance. If you're not romantic all the time,
Oh, snap.
that's actually good because 80-20 rule says that just a few of the romantic gestures that you do will give 80% of the memories of romance. So if you did if you did 50 romantic gestures a year, there are only 5 of them are going to actually really be special. So just actually don't do 50, just do 5, but make them special. I'm still testing that.
Let me know how that works out.
Okay, it's working great so far.
Boom.
But what about against the 80-20 principle, which it sounds even a little bit like heresy, but
Laziness.
one thing I can think of is against it, it's sometimes really hard to figure out what the 20% is. You can, like for me, trying to figure out the best way to get clients, I've been at this hard for, 5 months now and working at the company for like a year and a half, and I still don't know the 20% that gives me 80% of the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So if I tried to come into it from the beginning with an 80-20 analysis, like, I'm just going to do the 20%. Mm-hmm. Well, dude, you don't know what that is.
You got to try everything. Yeah. Which in that case, the 20% that you could focus on is make calls.
Maybe, but what about LinkedIn? What about like people don't answer? What about networking? You could focus on making calls, but then do you call homeowners? Do you call businesses? And if you call, what if homeowners don't answer? Or like, when do you call?
Well, if you're starting on day one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did. I just started and I was like, okay, I'm going to make a lot of calls.
That's a good place to start.
Then I figured it out, and I still haven't totally figured it out. Mm-hmm. And then another thing against the 80-20 principle is the 80-20 principle kind of is a little bit of a nice thing to think about. And so sometimes you shy away from hard work because, you're kind of used to the 80-20. Hey, I'm going to find the most efficient way. I'm just going to do it really efficiently. Well, sometimes the 20% that gives 80% of the benefit is just busting your ass. Like, what if in my job, or what if in your situation, the 20% that gave you 80% of the benefit is coming up with new song ideas? Mm-hmm. It's not how you dress. It's not who you talk to on the phone before you do that. It's
what kind of microphones do you use?
It's how much you work.
Yep.
So,
I think that's true.
So sometimes the 20% is just, hey, you gotta get after
everything.
it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I think of is sometimes you just have to do inefficient crap. And this was something that was really hard because I read the 80-20 book and I was like, yep, okay, I buy it 100%. And so I was cleaning, organizing, paying taxes, learning basic bullshit adult skills. I was like, this is not part of the 20% that's going to give me 80% of the benefit. I don't care about this. And then my fiance is like, you're an animal. You need to clean, you dirty beast. And I was like, oh, fine. So I've kind of resigned myself to that. You seriously sometimes just have to do stuff that is not perfectly efficient.
And maybe we just need to redefine what we mean by efficient. Maybe that stuff is being efficient depending on what your goals are.
Well, I decided, that 20% of my relationship is making sure that I don't live like a beast.
Boom.
But, and so I wanted to introduce all that, and we wanted to introduce it because you need to know that for you to know how we're grappling with this idea. Because there's some unanswered questions. I mean, are there activities where the 80-20 analysis doesn't matter? How do you even reconcile? I mean, do you be really, really disciplined in everything, or do you pick some stuff?
Yeah.
And if we think of that with that first one, are there activities where 80-20 analysis doesn't matter? I mean, what if the best way has already been figured out? What if you want to be the best boxer ever? And you hire the number one boxing coach in the entire world. You do everything that boxing coach says, and then you double it. You're for sure going to succeed. I mean, he already knows the best way. In that situation, is there room for 80-20 analysis?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right.
I believe. I was thinking of, what if there's, let's say you're learning accounting. there's already the method. You just learn it. Or let's say you're learning jujitsu.
Well, I was gonna say
Maybe not. Jiu-jitsu complicated.
Well, yeah, boxing could be complicated too.
Yeah.
First of all, that assumes that there's like a perfect way that's gonna work forever, period, and I don't even think that's true.
Sure.
I think that people can get a really firm idea of the basics of what's important, and that's good. But just like everything, you don't know who you're going to fight in that boxing situation. They don't know who they're going to be boxing. They can't just memorize the steps to box correctly and then go out and do it, because some dude's going to be unorthodox and come in from the side, flank him, and he's not going to know what to do. Like, what if he does? What if you get some guy who's not a trained boxer and just gets a lucky shot of a bear claw swing, like, really horrible technique punch and lands it on some guy,
But I still
bites him.
Well, maybe the biting.
Yeah.
But I still don't see how, if you just have unmitigated daily discipline in all things and you follow what the coach says and do no critical thinking, how that would not suffice.
I'm sure it does, but the coach probably has. I mean,
And maybe the coach used 80-20 analysis to get there. I don't.
and this might be impossible to answer because I'm sure the coach has to say somewhere in that perfect advice, do this, but read your environment. Like, make the
That's
call.
true. You're not just a robot.
You're not a robot. This is a human being you're dealing with variables.
And then there's. So I think that makes sense. Because I really was trying to figure that out, because if true, because I feel like part of the reason that you use 80-20 analysis is if you're trying to get the best outcome in the shortest amount of time in uncharted waters.
Yeah, and I think the 80-20 thing, it can seem like a shortcut. I don't even know that I would call it a shortcut. I would just say, I don't think there's a shortcut. I think that not doing the 80-20 analysis is just a long cut.
You're just focusing on stupid stuff.
You're just adding unnecessary things to your what you're trying to do. So you're not really taking a shortcut. It's still going to take you the same amount, like the required amount of time to get from here to there. But 80-20 is just a mindset to have that helps you strip away the unnecessary. So like for me, what does that mean? Well, practicing every day and writing every day. I feel like if you do that every day, even poorly, some days,
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty good.
And I think
Period.
the example of not using 80-20 analysis would be, well, I want to learn about music. I'm going to, those magazines in Walmart when you check out that have musicians on them, I'm going to buy those and read all those.
All of them.
But really, if you think about it, that is not helpful. Even though you might get inspiration, if you do any 80-20 analysis, that is negligible, tending towards a horrible idea.
And also, it helps you, like we said, strip away the unnecessary. Let's say you're doing a lot of things during a day and you only have 2 hours to work on something today. Like you only have 2 hours to work on music, right? Should you spend that time reading those 3 extra music magazines that you picked up for some reason? Or should you spend it doing scales with a metronome or writing and recording more? I would say, obviously, do the important things. It helps you, have a framework.
So I think
Make
that
decisions.
the answer that I came up with that I'm still not sure is right is of comparing unmitigated daily discipline in all things versus the 80-20 principle is a little bit of a cop-out. Do both. With the caveat, if it's something that you don't really care about meandering through, like if I think about Taekwondo for the first 2 years I did it, I mean, I was like 10 to 12. I just showed up because I didn't want to go to soccer practice because I was fat and I was the goalie and my team was horrible. So I just was the defense. And then my team didn't listen. So the coach got mad and made everyone run. But I was a goalie, so I was fat and I didn't want to run. So I was like, I'm going to do Taekwondo. And so I went and I just showed up. But after about 12, I was like, oh, there's a much more effective way of doing this. I can practice specific parts and get better, and it was freedom. But so with the caveat, if you're not just doing something for fun, like if I think about me shooting my bow, I just go out and shoot it for fun a lot of times.
How about dating? Like if you go on a date with somebody, should you
Yeah.
have the most efficient date ever?
I mean, if you're trying to find your wife, yeah. But if you're just trying to have fun, no. Or if you're hanging out with your friends, I mean, when I hang out with other friends than you, I don't do Jordy. I don't. What? Oh, help. I don't do 80-20 analysis. But so let's just say that you don't want to do that. Let's say you're on the assumption that you want to find the best, most effective, optimal way to succeed as quickly as you can. My thesis, which is, I can't even really call it a thesis because I thought of it like in 3 days, but is at the beginning, when there's really no method, you must have unmitigated daily discipline in all things because you don't know what's going to work. And we've talked about this, but me with prospecting. I mean, I do cold calling, LinkedIn, Toastmasters, Rotary Club, Running Club, asking people for advice. I mean, I meet grown men who are like 50 and I ask them for advice and I say, hey, I'm a young man trying to be successful. Do you have any advice? And they're all like, oh my God, yes, I do. And then they give me advice. And then, they introduce me to their friends and stuff. It's pretty weird, but I watched a YouTube video about it, so it's totally fine. But you don't know what works. So you have to have unmitigated daily discipline in all things, but through the lens of the 80-20 principle. You got to remember that there are things out there that are more efficient than others. So while you start out with your best guess and you say, I'm going to throw everything on the wall and see what sticks, when something sticks, you throw more of that on the wall.
And less
of the other stuff.
Yep.
Always keep asking yourself, what is the 20%? But you got to keep that same level of unmitigated daily effort. You just shift it to more and more effective methods until 2 years down the line, you're still getting after it just as hard. You're being just as disciplined. You are just focusing on the most effective method.
Here you go. Let's take this out of the theoretical.
Let's do it.
So I was trying to write music, right?
Yes.
Well, the first thing I did was try to very accurately and precisely write down all the notes that I wanted to play for something. Like, let's say I'm coming up with a melody. I'm going to take a pen and paper. I'm going to write out the melody that I want, and this is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And every note's got to be placed just right because erasers don't exist.
Oh, yes.
And you only have one sheet of paper. So
it's got to look beautiful, too.
It's got to be perfect. Yeah,
because
beautiful.
That's a reflection of you as an artist.
Exactly. So that's how it started, and it didn't work very well. And then I tried other things like using, and I still use this. This can be really good. Using voice memos on your phone, coming up with an idea, stopping recording, record again, coming up with another idea.
Yep.
But then it was kind of like still trying to have the right ones every time. That worked decently, and then I moved to trying to record different ideas on the computer, just within Pro Tools, recording software. And then now I've moved to pressing record and constantly playing ideas that are different for like 5 minutes straight at a time.
But you took that same level of focus you had at the beginning,
That's right.
and you've just iterated it
Yep.
towards the better method. And then if something kind of works, you're like, oh, let me try more of that. And then if it even kind of works more, like, oh, let me do more of that.
So
until eventually the eighth
triple down.
iteration is way different.
You triple down on the 20%. So I noticed, like, when I was writing stuff, I noticed, wow, this is really hard. It takes forever. And also, I need more ideas. So let me try to come up with more ideas. So then try to have...
Wow, this is so horrible.
This is horrible. So then I was like, this would help. It would help if I had more ideas to work with.
Yeah.
So I individually recorded more ideas. And then I noticed, hey, this is good. When I forget to press stop on the recording, I just have more ideas, and it feels good to kind of just flow and free train of thought and let yourself just flow. That kind of is useful. So now I just triple down on that, and I just press record from the beginning.
And that's the method.
And I intentionally try to not plan. I press record before I'm ready.
Nice.
And then I have to start playing. You're like and then you just go, and then you have to figure something out.
Dude, I did the same thing with when I started. I
Yep.
thought, okay, I'm gonna cold call. That's all, because I came from phone
do it.
sales, and I
Yeah.
was like, let's do this crap. See, I'm
Mm-hmm.
censoring myself. I'm very nice now.
So professional.
I know. And the first 2 weeks, I think I made like 1,500 calls. Something ridiculous. And my team was just
Troy's an
like,
animal.
they were like, did we hire a wild beast? Like, does he even live? And I was like, I will make it. And I probably talked to 20 people. And I was like, oh my God, this is a problem. And it turns out I was calling consumers during the day at their homes. No, and then I tried in the evening, and no one answers their home phone anymore. But so I just was iterating, and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. This is really hard, kind of like you with writing the songs. And I stumbled on LinkedIn, and so I was like, okay, well, let me send some connection requests. And I sent, I don't know, 100 connection requests, 50 connection requests, and I got 40% of the people accepted. And I was like, wait a second. This is a different experience.
Yeah.
So then after, another month or two of just kind of meandering around and still trying different stuff, I was like, okay, let's send 3,400. So I sent 3,400 connection requests. It took me 11 days straight, listened to George Washington's entire biography. Really boring, 56 hours. I think it's actually 43, but I like to exaggerate. And I sent all the connection requests, and then I'm running people through this marketing campaign. This week is calls to action. I'm asking people to get on the phone and chat. And so far, in the past 2 days, I've had 4 people. And LinkedIn's going to be good because not everyone checks it every single day. But that's just an example of I came in with an idea. I knew I was going to get after it. I was going to be totally unmitigated and disciplined. But I also was being on the lookout for those little gems that were way better than others. Because, I could have joined a volleyball team if I was like, I'm going to try everything. But that's a horrible idea.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? But
here we go.
But see, I come into this thing where then it's like, but I don't know if that's really true. I feel like you should
Check this out though.
Okay.
You're gonna have unmitigated discipline. What if someone on your list and some of your prospects? I don't know the vocabulary.
That's right. Prospects. Is right.
Okay. Boom. One of your prospects. You're trying to take them through this marketing campaign to try to get them to work with you, to be your client. What if on step 3 out of 5 they're like, yeah, can we hire you? Can you do business for us? Nope, I got 2 more steps. Just hold on. I'm not gonna hire you.
That's a good point. Well, because
that would be ridiculous.
That would be ridiculous because I'd realize that actually meeting with people is the 20% that gives 80%, 90, 100%, 95% of the benefit. But I also have broken this down into there's prospecting and then there's selling. So prospecting is going out and finding people. Think about where the word came from, prospector, from those people. If you haven't seen the movie There Will Be Blood.
Nope.
I hated it. And then my really nerdy friend who loves films explained to me how I should be interpreting it. Watched it again, loved it. But it's about this guy who goes out and tries to find gold, and then he ends up finding oil, and he kind of kills somebody with a pool ball. It was pretty cool. But he's a prospector. So he goes out and he's just hunting for gold. So I am out, prospecting is just the hunting. So I have 80-20 analysis that I've divided that as a separate skill from selling. But I get your point. Well taken.
Boom.
But I think that's reasonable. So when you start out, you just got to do everything.
Wait.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
Oh, no.
Asteroid coming in to destroy all of our plans. Starting with unmitigated discipline and just jumping in ahead of time and doing everything, isn't that the 20% that would give you 80% of the benefit?
But that's like saying winning is the 20% that gives you 80% of the benefit.
No, it's not. I'm saying...
I just thought that was a cool way to say it. I don't know.
No,
Go ahead.
That's like, starting the race, running the marathon with some kind of technique, starting now is better than having the perfect technique and then starting. Like, just start going. That was a horrible analogy, but just start trying all your methods, trying all the different kinds of things. That's the 20% that's going to give you 80% of the benefit. Not planning things out perfectly, not looking for resources, not asking other people. Those are all helpful things, but the 20% that's going to give you 80% of the benefit is just having unmitigated discipline at the beginning and just getting after it and starting.
So maybe
We can
In
have both.
conclusion, it's get after it intelligently.
Yep, and learn along the way.
Nice.
So,
I think that wraps that up. And we actually got a question. Do you want to move to the Q&A?
sure.
And I'm smiling because the question's from me.
Surprise. First
'cause
question
we-
from
Because we got no questions.
someone named Troy
Troy.
Mononym.
Mononym. I'm a one namer like Cher.
Okay, what's your question?
Well, so I was thinking
Audience
through all
member
this,
Troy.
and I kind of feel this because I've got, sometimes I just look out the window and it's like, just jump.
What?
And, no, I mean,
are you okay?
not really, but I mean, dude, cold culture sucks.
Oh,
and I'm just in the grind. I mean, it's like asking a Navy SEAL trainee in buds, like, are you having fun? It's like, dude, I've eaten more
No, I'm not
sand than
having fun.
food in the last 5 days.
You kidding me?
So the question is, what about burnout?
Bum. If you've experienced burnout listening to this right now, comment and let us know.
But go ahead, Jordy. You take burnout first because I've got some thoughts.
You got some thoughts?
But I know that you and I tend to differ because I'm more of just the slave driver of myself, and you're more of like, I have feelings and I really am gonna think this through.
That's really true. We make a good team. So burnout to me, well, also there's a difference between burnout and being tired and like in the grind. I feel like that's different.
Because burnout is, man, I'm just so burnt out. I don't want to
Have no motivation to do
yeah.
this. I'm so just dead. I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. I just want to quit. I think that burnout would really come when you lose touch with why you're doing something. When you break the tether of why you're doing it. If you look at something for what it is, just calling strangers and talking to them and prospecting them, it's terrible. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
That sounds terrible. No one would do that voluntarily.
That's true.
For
Like,
fun.
what do you do for fun?
Well, I call strangers' houses.
I have them yell at me, and I try to convince them to come into my house.
Yes. Terrible idea. Obviously, it's not what we do. When you know why, when there's a firm reason why, then you take that action and you say, this isn't just calling strangers. There's a reason
There's a
behind this.
bigger picture. That makes sense.
And when you're committed to the why of what you're doing, and you not only are committed, but you have to recommit and know why you're doing it and feel why you're doing it, I think that might help with burnout.
Nice. Well, I don't really feel burnout, but I've got some thoughts that are totally different than that.
Try harder.
So one is Grant Cardone, which he's a bad man. He wrote a really good book, 10X.
The 10X.
The 10X rule, or
10X?
10X? I think 10X. Whatever. Just
Something.
Google 10X. And the book is so good. The book is really good. But then if you see this dude's YouTube channel, I don't like him at all.
He just immediate creepy salesman.
Just creepy salesman, like, yeah, baby, sign here. Which one do you want it on, Thursday or Wednesday? I'll bring it today. He's very, very weird. But
Yeah.
I kind of like his quote, and he says, "Burnout's for bitches." That's a quote, so I can swear. And I also have to think back, Navy SEAL training, Hell Week. They sleep for 5 hours for the whole week. I mean, are you really burnout, or do you just not motivating yourself? Moderation's for cowards. Be tougher. There's just some thoughts, because I mean, and I'm kind of saying this to myself because it's am I burnout, or am I just giving into weakness? But again, that's not totally true, and there's for sure burnout. So I kind of related it to a new principle I learned with lifting, obviously, because everything relates back to lifting.
Here we go.
And it's a concept of fatigue management in powerlifting. Because I hurt my back, and I can't do a lot of exercises, so I've just been messing around with what I can do. So I said, I want to get a big bench.
Hold on one second. Let me just pause. If you're listening to this, by messing around with what he can do, he means lifting waking up at like 4:45 in the morning and going out to his gym and lifting like every day, like 5 times a week or something like that, hardcore with any exercise he can. So his definition of doing what I can is pretty intense.
Yeah, whatever. But
Giving you some credit.
In powerlifting, there's an idea of the maximum recoverable volume. So as a general rule, more volume is better, and more volume causes more growth and more strength gains. But there's a point. There's a point where too much volume, actually, you start to be overtrained, and you start to break down, and eventually you'll just not progress at all. So let's say that the maximum recoverable volume for your chest is 30 sets of chest a week. So if you're doing 5 sets, maybe you're maintaining. If you're doing 10 or 15 sets, you're probably improving, but not as much as if you were doing 30 sets. And if you're doing 40 sets a week, you're just blowing it out, and you're going to have to take a mandatory rest week as your pec rips off. And so the only way to find your specific maximum recoverable volume is to push it and keep adding volume until you start being unable to complete the next workout's reps. Because if you're still progressing,
that's interesting.
If you're still progressing, you're not at your maximum recoverable volume. Because if you were, you would not be progressing. I mean, if you're progressing on a macro level, I mean, if you're progressing one workout to the next, you could be, because your body's just resilient. But if over a month or two you're still progressing, you haven't hit it. So you can push up your frequency, you can push up your volume. And I've been blowing my mind with 3 times a week pretty hard bicep workouts, and other muscles, but that's all I really care about. And and I mean, it's crazy. I'm cutting and I'm getting jacked. So my view is that
you have to hit that
working, working and grinding and doing your craft is kind of like that. I mean, because you can go to work and you can work a little bit, and you can maybe like not get fired. And you can go to work and you work pretty hard and kind of progress. Then you can go to work and get after it optimally, but at a level that you're able to do over and over and over and over.
So basically, push it over and over and over again, and keep upping it until
you get emotional problems. That's what I'm doing.
No, seriously. And check this out. When you hit that, what's the
Back it
answer?
off.
Not be tougher.
Yeah.
The answer is not keep going and do more.
Nope.
At that point, it's to be smart and to say, okay, I'm experiencing physical or emotional burnout. What's the issue? I think in that situation, if you're like, the solution is 40 more sets.
That's what I've learned. Yeah. So, because I want to say those first things, because I truly believe that if you're, just coming in and you're doing 10 sets metaphorically at work, and your maximum recoverable volume is 30 sets, and you're like, I'm burned out, dude, be tougher. Mm-hmm. But so what I sometimes, like, I get anxiety driving to work, but I know that I don't get as much anxiety as when I was trying to make like 200 calls a day. So I've like backed it off enough that I'm able to kind of exist at this level where I'm at my maximum recoverable volume for how hard I'm going. And, there's like tomorrow, it's a Friday. I've got a bunch of appointments in the morning. I'm probably just going to read some PDFs about lifting in the afternoon. Just kind of, take a little deload.
Uh-huh.
But I personally think that it's always better to err on the side of getting after it too hard.
Yep. And I think, what am I trying to say here? Nothing's going to push you to do more work by itself except for you, but your body will naturally push you back from doing too much work. Like if you work out way more than you can physically do it, your body is just going to react by saying, oh, now you're sick, or now you're injured, or now you need to sleep for 14 hours straight because you're that overtrained. Like you'll get checked.
And the cool thing
you don't
is
have to try to do that.
The learning process does something similar, because as you get smarter and smarter, I don't want to say smart, but as you get better and better at learning a skill, you chunk it. The book, The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, my first great love. That book was so good.
Everyone.
Really
That's
do
really
read
good.
it. I mean,
That's
it
really
seriously
good.
changed my life.
Yeah.
it talks about how when you start out, when you start learning anything, it's kind of conscious. You're going through the motions, you're thinking about it. But as you get better, it becomes subconscious and you chunk it. And then eventually, if you look at a pro MMA fighter, they're not thinking up there. They're just they are game theory versus game theory, chunks of patterns going at each other, and this like detached observer executing the motions.
Totally agree, but I don't think that that's quite the same.
But I'm just saying that your maximum recoverable volume at work will increase too. If you push it really hard, you're going to be able to push it even harder because you're going to chunk, you're going to get better. As you get better, you can get faster. As you get faster, you can do more. So keep always trying to push it. But if you are really burnout, take a little deload.
I think what I'm going to take away from this is interesting. I'm going to like use this week, this coming or next 2 weeks, to have a bias towards pushing it. Because
you can always back it down if you get an overtraining symptom.
I was gonna say it's easy. It's really easy to back it down, and if you're going too hard, you'll get back down for you by getting way overly trained or tired or sick or something. You'll get back down without you trying to be back down.
Yeah, dude, I'm taking a deload every 4 weeks now.
Yeah,
and I never did. I used to be like burnouts for bitches, and then I would start getting trench mouth, like. 10 weeks into my crazy workout plan because I wasn't doing any fatigue management.
Yeah.
And it's really if you go hard for 3 weeks, the third week you functionally overreach. You go
There's a sweet spot.
You go a little bit above your maximum recoverable volume, but then the fourth week you take a deload where you're chilling.
Yeah.
Then you recover and then you can go a lot further.
I'm gonna
Dude, read The Scientific Principles of Strength Training by Dr. Mike Israetel. I cried. It was so good.
Wow, really?
Actually, yeah, like it totally changed my whole worldview of lifting because I had that epiphany that eating clean is not as important as eating flexible dieting style if it fits your macros. The functional principles scientific principles of strength training, it was that lifting version.
So basically, just you have to push it. It's like driving a car. You don't want to overheat, but if you got more in the tank, you can rev the engine higher than you think maybe.
Yeah.
Here's a really good quote, I think, that is not his, but he heard it from someone else, and I got it from this guy. I quote him all the time, Mr. Seth Godin. He said that he was taking human being. He was taking ski lessons. Steroids. He was not taking steroids.
No, he's very small.
He's a very small man.
Little shrew man.
He is, but he said
sorry,
he was he was taking ski lessons, and his ski instructor told him, you want to know the secret to those competitors to do the what's that? I don't know what's called. Where they go down that big ramp and ski and jump off.
It's actually just called the ski jump.
The ski jump. Okay, boom. That was really dumb. But the ski jump, he's like, you want to know the secret to the ski jump? The person who leans forward the most wins. That's the only rule. And Seth Godin was like, wait, but what if you lean forward too far? Don't you fall? And he was like, yes, that's the point. You have to be the one that leans forward the most, but not so much that you fall. So that's where you find it.
Yeah.
You got to lean forward. Whoever leans forward the most, whoever has the most reps they can, wins.
But have a bias
without falling.
Have a bias towards manning up. Just be tougher.
Be okay with falling.
Get after it. But then also recognize that you're having anxiety when the phone rings because you've made so many calls. Maybe chill out
Just
a little bit,
Let's
bro.
breathe. Yeah. I think that we drilled that point straight to the Earth's core.
That was perfect. And I feel like that was a pretty good episode. You want to sing us a closing song?
Sing a closing song. I don't want to take too long.
Don't take too long. That's right.
I don't even know what that song was.
We don't have any listeners anymore.
Yeah, if you're still listening, thanks for sticking with us as
this
slowly just became a rant between me and Troy.
That's what it always has been. But I think, brother, that's all I got.
That's really all I got too. So in summary, 80-20.
I think you got to start out totally, completely, unmitigatedly disciplined in all things. Take that level of effort.
then be smart about
try
it.
to parse it down, go to more and more efficient methods,
And then double down on the 20%.
double down on the 20%, and just you got to still get after it.
Yep.
And err on the side of getting after it too hard,
And I'm
because
gonna say,
no one died from discipline.
and I'm gonna say, just offer the idea of whoever leans forward the most wins.
That's right.
Cool.
The end.
The end. Thanks for listening. We will be back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. We're doing a bi-weekly release right now. So thanks for listening. We hope you got something out of this. Let us know what you think about it. Let us know your questions. Let us know topic ideas if you have any. As a young professional, just like we are, what are you dealing with? What are your problems? What are your
Because we're all in this
questions?
together. I mean,
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's why we're brainstorming. You know, we both have opposite perspectives in a lot of ways.
And sometimes the same
The
perspective.
same perspective, but a lot of times opposite. And so
We help each other out.
You know, if you've got questions, send them our way, because you know we're all grinding
Yeah. So
intelligently.
keep killing it. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in 2
Next
weeks.
time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.